So today, Rumble, who, if you're not aware, it's the new conservative video platform. That's where Right Side Broadcasting was basically promoting, or not basically promoting. That's where Right Side Broadcasting has been live streaming all of the Trump rallies. They continue to live stream. It's where they stream the Mike Lindell's 3-day cyber symposium, which amounted to absolutely nothing. Um, that's where some of your favorite right wingers, who, for reasons whether they were banned from YouTube or just don't want to be part of the YouTube platform, they got two choices basically if they're creating video content. They can go to BitChute, which is like the Gab of video, riddled with white supremacy and far right, anti Semitic, neo Nazi content. Or they could go to Rumble, which is like the Parler of video, where there's some pretty crazy right wing shit on there, but there's a line, sort of. It's not as far as BitChute. There is a line. And I say sort of because Rumble doesn't want to really announce that there's a line. They want to be the free speech network. But there's a line. There is. You could just tell by go to bitchute.com, go to rumble.com, take a look at what's on the front pages. You can tell the difference between the two. Both right-wing content, different levels of it though. But anyway, Rumble announced today that they were going to pay content creators to come onto their platform. Now, they already have a few big content creators, I already said. Look, let me go to rumble.com right now. Let's do it. Let's go to rumble.com right now. Rumble.com. And let's pull up what is on the front pages of rumble.com. We got Is America Doomed? From The Officer Tatum. It's live streaming right now. 2,000 plus people watching. You got Dan Bongino with the Bongino Report. You got a few other right-wing channels here. Donald Trump Jr.'s got to deal with them. These are people who've been on for a long time. And then you got some mainstream platforms. You do. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But all of the independent creators are right-wingers. But today they announced they're going to pay some content creators to come onto the platform. Because I guess, they need to boost the numbers here. Strike the iron while it's hot, right? And who are these content creators they signed on? They got Tulsi Gabbard, Glenn Greenwald, Bridget Patassi. I don't know how to say her last name. She's sort of like a contrarian on Twitter. Matt Orfolia, who is a guy who basically, if you'll remember, he got hired by the Bernie Sanders campaign for a hot minute and then was fired when some videos came to light that he made that didn't look so great. I mean, I think, they really were in the proper context. Obviously, they meant different than how people took them. I believe one of them was editing a Martin Luther King Jr. speech so that he said some obscene things. Again, people do that sort of shit for comedic value. Not a great move to do, I guess, if you want to work for a political campaign. But from there, he went to becoming further contrarian, and pretty much all of his content revolves around attacking YouTube censorship. And by YouTube censorship, I mean the same sort of lame content ID stuff that every YouTuber who's a partner goes through, where YouTube's automated system does some false positives where it hits you for perhaps having content that can't be monetized. And you have to obviously request a review or dispute it. And then a real human being looks at it and goes, oh, shoot, our automated system fucked up. Here you go, your monetization's back or whatever. It happens to every YouTuber. It happens to me all the time. I don't create the YouTube videos that I'm being censored 24/7 like some of these guys do. But that's his play. That's this guy's play. And then who else? Zaid Jalani and Shant Misrobian, who run a Substack together. These are two guys who used to be pretty normie Democrats who also went the contrarian route. The Michael Tracy-esque I hate Dems more than anybody. Dems are the reason everything's wrong. I mean, never really going after Republicans, pointing out that when Republicans have a point and how the woke mob is coming after everybody, cancel culture run amok, but we're not right wingers. They went that route, even though Shant Misrobian, last I looked, was a Think Progress guy. Same with Zaid, if I remember correctly, but Shant was a guy who was writing speeches for Obama back in the day. Jeez, I don't know what happened there. And a few other people they signed. Basically, you got a bunch of right-wingers and a bunch of people who claim to be leftists or don't put us in a bubble or don't put us in a box. We're free thought, independent thinkers. And Glenn Greenwald, who I do think doesn't really fit with a lot of those guys. I mean, yes, he does the whole contrarian thing on Twitter, but the guy still has a history of actual legit reporting and breaking huge stories. So I don't think Glenn is quite in that bucket with those other guys, but he's not a leftist. He would tell you up front he's not a leftist. So they hired all these guys. Some of them got 6-figure deals apparently to post on Rumble. The Washington Post covered it, and according to Washington Post coverage, Rumble says that they're paying this money to these media personalities in order to challenge the status quo, which is interesting to me because if you look, like I just said, all these people are pretty much sort of at home on Rumble, right? I mean, even Glenn Greenwald, sure, he fights the power against, when government does horrible things. He had the great NSA leaks that Edward Snowden provided. Glenn's done good work. But at the end of the day, he fits alongside. He's not, the whole point here is they say to show this is not an all MAGA website. Now, Glenn's not MAGA, I would say, but he's not exactly anti-MAGA. I mean, he just doesn't really say anything, and neither do any of these guys, to really ruffle the feathers of the MAGA folks. Putting them up there doesn't really shake up what's going on Rumble already. Just getting a bunch of people who maybe have different opinions on Trump, but aren't really going to talk about him because, hell, he's not relevant anymore, really. So I pointed out that it's weird that if you're going to have a site that's mostly right-wing content and you want to hire people to shake up the status quo, why would you not hire a bunch of legit leftists? I mean, I don't have a problem with a platform being what it is. Like if Parler, Getter, whatever, wants to have a right-wing social media platform, fine. They say that's what they are. Well, they do the whole free speech thing, which is not true. None of those platforms are free speech. They have policies and ban users all the time. But if you're going to have a whole platform that says, we want independent thought, we want a diversity of ideologies, where are the leftists, though? Well, it's clear why, to me at least, why the people who were hired. And that's because they don't really bother Peter Thiel. Why does it matter if they don't bother Peter Thiel? Well, that's because the funding that Rumble has to hire all of these content creators comes from an investment via Narya Capital, a fund co-founded by Hillbilly Elegy, excuse me if I'm not saying that right, I always mess up that word, author J.D. Vance, who is now running a far-right campaign for Congress, and billionaire venture capitalist Peter Thiel. I mean, this is a guy who runs a giant spy operation with Palantir and has donated massive amounts of money to Trump. Why isn't he hiring anyone who attacks MAGA thought, MAGA ideology, Republican right-wing ideology, the Trump conspiracy theories? Well, because why would he fund that? He believes in that stuff. So he hires a bunch of people who are just contrarians, who won't rock that boat, but aren't in that right-wing box. And there you go. He could claim that he's hiring diverse thought. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, what she did on her way out, just because she was a Democratic congresswoman, on her way out, she put forth a bill to ban trans women from playing in sports. Why? Why would she do that? Other than send the message. She was on her way out, had no support, but she did that. This is someone who buddied up with Modi, India's far-right leader. This is someone who belongs to some weird religious conservative cult. This is a war hawk character who has supported numerous bills while she was a congresswoman to fund the war on terror, while then pretending that she was anti-war. This is someone who is against Obama's crowning foreign policy achievement, which everyone, whether you liked Obama or not, admits was one of the only good things Obama did foreign policy-wise, the Iran deal, which basically helped relations with Iran and helped us avoid any sort of conflict with Iran. She was against that in the beginning. Trump ended up blowing up the Iran deal, I guess if you want to use that choice of words, which led to the relations between the two countries being quite bad now. If you remember, we basically assassinated one of Iran's military leaders. I mean, this is who Rumble hired, and this is why. And if you're questioning, like, what is Rumble? Where did it come from? And I got into a little spat with Glenn Greenwald because he was like, where does Majority Report's funding come from? And I'm like, well, it's mostly listener. Well, when I was there full time, it was completely listener funded, 100% funded by subscribers who listen to the show. Now, I believe there is some funding, obviously, from the syndication deal they have with Peacock. But the majority of the support, funding-wise, comes from listeners. If Peacock was to pull back tomorrow, the show would continue on thanks to listener funding. If listener funding was to go away tomorrow, I don't believe the Peacock funding would be enough to keep Majority Report going, to be quite frank. Now, I have no insider information here. I have no idea whatever the deal with Peacock is. But based on the fact that the Peacock deal did not lead to any upgrade in the old Majority Report equipment, any upgrade into the old Majority Report studio, which they're in the same place when I was there, no upgrade to the old Majority Report set, which Sam Cedar basically put together with his own bare hands using some random shit he bought from IKEA. I mean, I don't know what there was no big upgrades thanks to that sweet, sweet Peacock money, so I don't really know how much they could possibly be funding the show, but it certainly is mostly funded by listeners. And, and the whole conversation basically came into Glenn saying to me, that, Rumble was created in 2013. It's existed for 8 years, and Peter Thiel invested in it months ago. The difference between Rumble and I brought up, if Mr., okay, so let me go back a little bit. So I basically said, listen, I don't have a problem with Peter Thiel funding this because obviously there's problematic funding behind a lot of organizations because he was bringing up the Comcast Peacock connection. My issue is that there's a specific deal between who is being funded and which is being funded with Peter Thiel's money, and exactly how they line up with what Peter Thiel believes. Now, I said, if Peter Thiel actually wanted to fund some sort of free speech haven with diverse thought, that'd be great. If he hired a bunch of right-wingers, a bunch of moderates, centrists, a bunch of actual legit left-wingers, even across the spectrum, some left-leaning Democrats, some progressives, some actual leftists, meaning socialists, communists, cool. Fine, take that money. I'm someone of the background where I'm of the thought process that I'm not one of those people who say, don't take money from this person. Don't go on that program because of what show or what network it is. I say, don't take their money and don't go on their show and give them what they want. Because then what's the point of that? They can get that from anybody. They're just using you. You need to get something out of it too. And that is, don't change who you are when going on these shows. Don't change your political ideology to match these shows. When you go on Tucker Carlson's show on Fox News, why are you going on to talk about whatever Tucker Carlson could be talking about with any old right-wing pundit? Like if you can be swapped out with Charlie Kirk or Dinesh D'Souza, and it does, and all three of you would just be nodding your head in agreement. And that's basically what it is. Then, I mean, what's the point of you going on? They could have, like I just said, got that out of Kirk or D'Souza. Same with taking their money. Listen, if you want to take Peter Thiel's money and go after the spy apparatus in this country, the surveillance state, which would certainly piss off Peter Thiel with his Palantir technologies, go for it, man. Cool. Do it. But, I mean, I don't think that's why you'd be picked, to be quite frank. I mean, I don't think, Zaid and Shant and Bridget are going to rock the boat over there and piss off Peter Thiel, because otherwise they wouldn't have been picked. But anyway, back to the discussion here. So I said, my whole point is Peter Thiel is funding it. That's not my issue. My whole point is that Thiel's involvement explains who Rumble has signed on. If they were truly trying to challenge the status quo, you'd see an array of ideologies signed on, not just those who line up with Mr. Thiel's. And then I said what I just told you guys about how if Peter Thiel wanted to create an actual free speech haven for diverse thought, great. And you want to get paid too? Who wouldn't sign on to that? Otherwise, I don't see the difference between what's going on over at Rumble and then the various cable news channels that Glenn just brought up, bringing up Comcast and MSNBC and Peacock, that create their own bubbles. Fox News only has on conservatives, MSNBC only has on Democrats and anti-Trump Republicans. I mean, they're creating bubbles, and that's what I was saying here. And so Glenn brought up how Rumble was created in 2013. It's existed for 8 years. Peter Thiel just invested in it months ago. The difference between Rumble and the platforms you've used is that, and the platforms, the difference between Rumble and other platforms is that it doesn't censor political speech. Well, that's not true, actually, because Rumble's own policy, ready for this one? Rumble's own policies say this: you may not disparage Rumble or any other user of the Rumble service. They have their own policies against hate speech as well, by the way. You can't talk shit about someone else using Rumble. That's crazy. That's not even a YouTube policy. But anyway, my whole point, though, there was that who cares if you're getting paid by whoever? Just don't pretend that, it's something it's not. And then when the background on Rumble as well is the reason why Rumble never had to deal with political speech is because it's been around for years, like you said, but it wasn't this conservative video platform. It wasn't a video platform like YouTube at all. It was some weird random website that basically made money asking people to it would basically search out viral videos, get people to upload their family's home videos and their funny viral animal videos on the site. And then Rumble would promote it. They would promote the videos that they would seek out, uploaded to their site. And they would promote it and make money off advertising. And then they'd go ahead and pay the viral video creators a little bit of money as well, like a revenue cut. They did this for years. This was just a site for these viral home videos and funny animal clips. It was like that website, The Dodo. And that's all it was. And then all of a sudden, in 2020, the end of 2020, when all these platforms started to clamp down on the rampant misinformation, the right got pissed and started looking for other platforms. They found some other platforms like BitChute and Parler, etc. Not as stable, though, obviously. And then they just found Rumble, which actually did have their shit together tech-wise. And so they started uploading to Rumble. And then Rumble said, hey, we're onto something here. We got all these conservatives joining the platform, and they said, let's do this. Let's go all in. They struck a deal with Don Jr. to get Don Jr. to upload vlogs solely to Rumble, which he's doing and has done for a while. And then that's when Peter Thiel came in and said, hey, I now want to invest in this. So, I mean, listen, if it was just a money-making opportunity for Peter Thiel, where was he when Rumble was making all this money with just animal videos? But it's not. Peter Thiel jumped in specifically because he sees an opportunity to shape a new platform. Is there a financial incentive? I'm sure there is, but that financial incentive was there in the animal video era of Rumble as well. Now, as they move on to this next era, I don't really know if there's a major difference financially. I know politics rarely is the big moneymaker. I can tell you right now that those YouTube videos with the funny animals and the home videos with the kids doing the darndest things, that content makes a hell of a lot more money because it's advertiser friendly than any political content on YouTube. Political content is rough because advertisers don't want to get involved with it. They just say, I don't want that stuff on there. And I mean, they have a right to do that. You can't force advertisers to pay you, which again is a lot of what these contrarians are yelling about when they go, YouTube demonetized my video. Yeah, I mean, they kept it on the site, right? Because they don't got a problem with it being on the site if you just got demonetized. The issue is advertisers are looking at your content and saying, no thanks. Well, what can they do about that? I mean, it is what it is. Same thing happens with Fox. Tucker Carlson, all he can get is the buy gold people nowadays and the MyPillow commercials. I mean, just how it is. You can't force advertisers to give you money. So, I mean, you know, if it was just a financial incentive for Peter Thiel, where was he when they were making bank on the advertiser-friendly content? My gut tells me Peter Thiel sees an opportunity to shape a new growing platform, specifically with the kind of content he wants to see. And lo and behold, there he is getting involved now in funding an operation that's bringing aboard new content creators that Peter Thiel just happens to like. Wonder why? Wonder why he likes them. I don't know. Maybe it's like how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Pop? The world will never know. Unless you want to just, take the 2 licks and chomp into it on the third, and you'll get your answer really quickly.